I just picked up this iPhone 8 from eBay so that I can set it up with the mobile Suica app. Suica is a popular chip card used as payment in Japan for subway, bus, and even store purchases. I've heard setup can be a challenge because of the specific requirements of setting it up if you're not in Japan. I'm curious what these challenges are, and we'll see if I can work through them next. This video is a simple how-to on setting up Suica on an iOS phone. I typically use an Android phone, but because the only Android phones that Suica will work on have to be purchased in Japan, for once I decided to do things the iOS way. I've only been to Japan once, but after that trip, I was certain I'd be back there many more times in the future. Knowing this, I'd like to be as prepared as possible for all future trips, and setting up mobile payments is a step in that direction. Before I start, I want to mention that there's not only software that's needed for this setup to work, but there's also hardware in the form of NFC with specific capabilities. It's for this reason I purchased this iPhone 8. Anything from the iPhone 8 or newer will work with this setup. On the Android side, there's a lot more phone options, but there seem to be a lot more restrictions. It seemed to depend on what country you're purchasing your phone from. The same phone from different countries may or may not work. It sounded like it had a lot to do with technology licensing, but I'm not sure about the details. On screen are the two ways I found for getting into Apple Wallet through either the Wallet app or the Settings app. I've never really used the Apple ecosystem extensively before, so I don't have anything set up as far as apps. The first thing I'll do is get into Apple Wallet to add a new card. To begin, I'll select Add Transit Card. The default cards available to Apple Wallet are organized by country, so I'll scroll down until I see Japan. 3 of the more familiar cards in Japan are listed, of which I'll select the Suica card. Selecting Continue prompts me for an initial amount to load onto the card. I think the minimum is 1,000 yen, but I'll enter 2,000 yen. At this point, Apple Wallet is trying to process a payment through Apple Pay, but because I don't have anything set up in Apple Pay, it's asking me to add a payment method. I'll go ahead and add one of my credit cards that I know will work overseas. I can now add the Suica card to my Apple Wallet by selecting Add at the top right. I'll agree to the terms and conditions, and finally, authorize the payment using the biometric sensor on the iPhone. This is where I think I've heard a lot of stories of how people are having trouble adding any of the Japan IC cards to Apple Wallet. It seems to be rejecting the payment, but doesn't give a descriptive reason why the payment is not going through. After many attempts, I was not able to load the Suica with any value. At some point, I decided to add the Pasmo and Icoca transit cards to my Apple Wallet and attempted to load them with value. And as you can see here, both the Pasmo and Icoca successfully loaded 1,000 yen. I thought I had figured it out until I attempted to load more value the next day, only to have it decline the same credit card that worked the day before. I eventually gave up and decided to take the advice of many people online who stated the Amex card works, so I went online and signed up for no annual fee Amex on the website. One thing nice about the application process is that if you're accepted for a new Amex, you can receive your card number right then and there. So I wrote it down so I could add this new Amex to my Apple Wallet. Once the Amex was added, loading value to Pasmo and Icoca worked with no problems at all. It was such a relief. I eventually added the Suica to my wallet, and like the Pasmo and Icoca, it too had no problems loading value. As mentioned in the thumbnail, I do have 2 great tips that are very useful. Tip number 1. Use the mobile IC cards to lock in on great exchange rates. By reloading a mobile IC card when the rates are better than usual, you can accumulate yen at great rates for use in the future. Tip number 2. I had watched a video that mentioned the possibility of credit cards being accepted as a substitute for IC cards. When this capability becomes available, I think for myself, because of tip number 1, I'd still want to use the mobile IC card. In hindsight, this process does not take that long, and anyone with an iPhone 8 or better can get things set up in maybe an hour, even if you don't have an Amex yet. For me, making this video took a nerve-wracking amount of time. I was almost ready to give up because of all the unexplained problems that occurred throughout. It's a relief when things start to fall into place. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. That's all I have for now, and I'll catch you in the next video.